Hey everyone, welcome to episode 4 of the MSX Insiders podcast with me, Sasha, and my co-host, Jatine. Today is a pretty special day because it's the last day of our quarter 3. So feeling a bit bittersweet, I think. We've got 2 weeks off for spring break, and then we've got our final quarter before we graduate in July. And it's been a wonderful experience, but I think the thing that's sticking out to me today is just how fast the quarter system is, right?
Yeah. I mean, with 3 quarters down, and I guess the quarters are broken up into themes. Like we come here in summer and we tackle our core classes, and then we come back in the fall when all the MBAs arrive, and then we start like choosing a few electives. And then you're waiting for like your main dish, which is the winter quarter, right? Which is exactly what we've been through. And it's like if we have a 4-course meal, you've passed the main point already, right? Because you've done all the great courses like Touchy-Feely this quarter, MGE. I mean, it's just an incredible list of things that we've done this quarter. So it flies by.
I do have to say at the beginning of this quarter, when we had like a month off for winter break, I felt so recharged, so energized, so clear on the direction that I was going. And at the end of this quarter, it's only been 10 weeks, but I'm exhausted. And I'm ready for this next like 2-week break to feel that recharged energy when we come back in April. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah. I've worked for a long time, but it's a different type of fatigue that you get. It's like this intensity that... obviously there's an end to the quarter where you don't take projects over, but it's a different type of intensity. It's a healthy intensity. It's not like, when you're at work and you like burnt out, but it's like you finished a race, like you finished a marathon, and you feel this tremendous satisfaction, but you also need to rest.
Exactly.
Yeah. And Sasha, what are if you look back at the quarter, what are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned from your time here?
This quarter was particularly emotionally difficult, I think. You and I are both in Touchy-Feely. I think we talked about that a little bit in the last episode. But it was a very introspective quarter. A lot of my theme for this quarter was a lot of soft skill classes. So MGE with Professor Dodson. I was in strategic communications. I was in Touchy-Feely. So a lot of sort of personal growth. And I'm excited for next quarter to kind of focus on, the next step and figuring out my career journey afterwards. What about for you?
Yeah, I think similar is a big stretch for me. As some of you know, I'm a finance person, so, I thrive on the technical elements and the business elements, but I really pushed myself to look at the soft skills. So we launched this podcast. I did the essentials of strategic communication, so that was great. Like with you, I think we had a big overlap with MG and Touchy-Feely. But, I think if I look back, I think I learned the value of preparation. Particularly for this podcast, and if you take the lessons from MGE, you just see if you have a framework for preparing for like a difficult conversation, allows you to have a much better chance of success. Sasha's been watching me in the journey in Touchy-Feely, and slowing down has been a big part of that process. And, that was incredibly, I guess, weaving a golden thread through the development that I've had in my life.
Yeah.
And then success takes time. Today we wrapped up the last entrepreneurship and VC class, and you look at these businesses that have launched, multi-billion-dollar businesses, and they take 10, 12 years.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem like it from the outside, but that's a long time, right? That's a whole school career. So those are the 3 big lessons that I take away.
And that's the exciting part for us, right? Is that we've already had a lot of successes and an opportunity to build a career, and we're getting an opportunity to kind of restart that and think about what we want to do for the next 10, 20 years and do it again.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I think we have a great guest that can help us, share some of these insights of building some great businesses. And we have Parul Gupta from our class today. So as some of you may have heard, Parul is I'm going to go backwards in time from her latest success to where she started out and do something different. But she's a board member and an advisor and angel investor. She started a company called Springboard, which many of you may be familiar with, which in the education space, it's an edtech startup. Prior to that, she spent some time at UCLA and at IBM. And, I think one of the most difficult parts of her background in terms of getting in was getting into IIT Mumbai. Sasha and I were just...
Harder than Stanford.
Yeah. we were talking on the stairs on the way down, and Sasha was just telling me how her dad reminded her of how hard it is to get into universities in India. So I thought I'll end with that, because I think that's a really significant achievement, which really bloomed into something amazing. So Parul, welcome to our podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. I mean, it's Parul and I are good friends. We watched the Cricket World Cup a few months ago. Spent the evening watching that with her son, and that was a great time. And I think Sasha will go into the interview, and let's go for it.
So, Parul, before when we were prepping for this podcast, you mentioned, this is an opportunity to kind of create your own path. There's no one size fits all, because all of us come from such diverse backgrounds, such different experiences. You had your own company for over a decade in the ed tech space. What were some of the considerations that you took into account when thinking about coming back to school and specifically looking at the MSX program?
Yeah. So Sasha, for me, coming to Stanford or coming back to school was not an obvious choice at all. In fact, I was a very late, last-minute round 3 application, put together my essays and recommendations and GMAT all in a matter of 3 to 4 weeks.
Wow.
And in fact, everybody around me kind of discouraged me, including my husband. And even to this date, when I tell somebody I'm at Stanford, they ask me, are you working there? Are you teaching there? And that's the truth. We have so much expertise in our class that many of us could be teaching. You could be teaching, both of you could be teaching finance or a product or something in your area of expertise. So for me, it was less of the usual considerations that bring a lot of students to Stanford, which tends to be tech, entrepreneurship, and exposure to Silicon Valley. But it was really the mission that I wanted to work on. And after stepping away from an operational role at my company, I was thinking about, okay, what problems speak to me? And climate definitely stood out as something that's going to be most important for the coming decades. And I had sort of honed in on that as my North Star. And at Stanford, coincidentally, it was around the same time in 2022, the Doerr School of Sustainability was announced. And it was the most beautiful intersection of my background and interests that cut across education, entrepreneurship, technology, and sustainability. So really my motivation was to be a part of this new ecosystem that was blossoming around the Doerr School. And for those of you who don't know, the Doerr School is a new school that was facilitated by a very generous grant from John Doerr of Kleiner Perkins fame, $1.1 billion, which is not a small amount by any means. And it's a big deal even for Stanford. This is Stanford's first new school in 75 years. And there is tremendous energy in sort of building this interdisciplinary machine that brings all the 7 schools around campus together to be a force of change. So it's kind of like, when they say, if you get a seat on the rocket ship, don't ask what seat, and
just get on it.
Get on it.
So you came here knowing this North Star of yours, like going into climate. I guess before coming, like how much time did you spend figuring out how you were going to achieve what you wanted to achieve during your time at Stanford, whether that was taking classes, whether that was, meeting certain professors or conferences? Like, did you do any prep work of that before coming here, or was a lot of that done while you were here?
Both. So there was, given that I was a round 3 applicant, I had about 3 months before coming to Stanford. And fortunately, I was in the Bay Area, so I could spend some time on campus. I could talk to the Doerr School leadership, meet a lot of faculty members on campus. And in fact, the fun fact is that in winter quarter in 2023, before deciding to apply, I sat through a class in the Doerr School. And that was taught by one of the giants in the space. It's a person called Emery Lovins. He is the founder of the Rocky Mountain Institute. And really interacting with him and the people in the class was what solidified my decision to apply. It was like, I want to be here. And so that was it. But even after the admission decision, and kind of when we used to have those webinars when alumni would come on to share a lot of information about the program, and the staff also actually created a lot of great orientation sessions that were very helpful. It set the stage, but there was so much more information that was uncovered as the quarters went by. And as all of us mixed in with the people here.
Yeah. So one of the things that I struggled with was when I came to this program, I had a direction of like where I wanted to go. And I came here and it kind of got thrown out the window. And there's so much talk about entrepreneurship and, being the next unicorn, or maybe I should get into venture capital. Did you find that you were getting pulled in multiple directions like once you started the program, or were you very kind of focused on where you wanted to go?
Definitely pulled in many different directions, and it was very, very, very hard to sort of retain focus. Stanford is such a beautiful, magical place. There's immense diversity and breadth and depth and richness of resources that are available to us, and it's really kind of, as one of the staff members said, an embarrassment of riches. We are very privileged. So that's been, there were times where I was being pulled in different directions, but I had to intentionally sort of remind myself of why I'm here and what are my goals, and kind of bring myself back. It's a little bit like meditation, right? Your mind drifts away and then you have that bell that brings you back. So I had to be very, very intentional.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of kind of like narrowing down your hypothesis, so one of the new sort of terms I think I heard when I came to Stanford from the CMC was, you get to test your hypothesis. And at first, when I heard this, I was like, what do you mean by hypothesis? Like I'm trying to build a career here. I'm trying to find a job. But truly looking back at it now, like I understand what they mean, right? It's like, imagine a specific career path or a specific job that you want, and how do you gather data and how do you gather information from conversations, from classes, from speaking to classmates about whether that's going to be a good fit for you. So can you talk a little bit about how you've gone from your kind of North Star that, okay, I want to look at something, a big problem in climate tech, and kind of narrowed it down to something that's much more like tactical and that what you actually want to do?
Yeah, it's been hard, to be honest. And the North Star, even within climate, for me, it was very clearly impact, like what really matters. And that was a guiding force. And when I looked at what are the different things people can do in climate, an easy or sort of natural path for me would have been to go towards entrepreneurship or start another business. But it wasn't clear to me that startups are the biggest impact lever in climate. They definitely have a role to play. Innovation and enterprise has a role to play. But where the gaps are and the biggest levers across solutions is actually policy and finance. So that is where, just starting from the point of impact, and these two areas, by the way, were totally far from my experiences when I came in. I knew very little about finance. I knew nothing about policy. So I tried to intentionally develop an understanding of those spaces and took courses and sort of attended sessions and mingled with people who were in this space. So that was kind of one thematic guidance that I had for my hypotheses. But then what is a career path? Like, what do you do in policy and finance? It's not easy after a 20-year career to become a policy wonk or an analyst or something. So some of the paths were just not available. And after doing kind of this, analytical process of converting the Ikigai framework to a color-coded spreadsheet with weights, kind of emerged with a few actually 3 hypotheses, and over time there was a much larger set which whittled down to a smaller one, and those were one was tech entrepreneurship, second was impact investing, which was kind of placed to the finance space, but also was particularly appealing because it bridged my worlds of education and climate, kind of like my past and my future, my desired future. Impact investors typically invest at the intersection of health, education, and climate. They tend to be 3 themes. So it would bring 2 of my worlds together. And then the third one, this is kind of like a wild card and an unconventional choice, is to actually work at Stanford in the Door School. And it's like an enterprise or like a startup within a big established organization, and they're building a whole new school. I think they are planning to hire 60 new faculty members, launch a whole new bunch of programs, and really build out the school. So there's much growth to be had.
Yeah.
And given my background in education and growing initiatives, I thought that would be a cool place to be.
Well, I would certainly take your class, whatever it is that you decide to teach. I wanted to just pick up on something you mentioned. You said ikigai. For those people that might not be familiar, I just wanted to spend a minute on it because it's a word that I first heard when I got here at Stanford. But it's something that I think about a lot. And I hope to be able, I think a lot of us hope to be able to find careers that kind of meet our ikigai. You want to explain a little bit about what it is to you?
Yeah, I don't think I'll do justice to how beautiful it is without visuals especially. But really, it's a kind of like a Venn diagram or an intersection of circles that bring together your passion, your skills, and what the world needs and what you can be paid for, because that's also a practical reality. So where all of those circles meet, that beautiful intersection of that is ikigai. And you can, by the way, add your own circles, what matters to you.
Exactly.
If it's impact, if it's people, if it's work-life balance. So my spreadsheet got a lot of columns added to that.
I need the spreadsheet.
Yeah, me too, right? Please share with us when you're done. So maybe last question on my end. You've talked a lot about the Dover School and a lot of, maybe conferences and discussions that are happening around this topic here at Stanford. How have you navigated all of this? Because the university is so big and there's so many resources available. Even the GSB itself has so many resources. So how do you navigate, what is the right class to take or what is the right conference? What is the framework you use?
Yeah. So it's not very scientific. It's very
That's
brute
fine.
force. There is so much, as you said, Sasha, there's so much out there that even discovery is hard. Just knowing what's out there. There's so many, like this room. I didn't know this existed. And there's so many initiatives at Stanford that I'm still learning about. So my method has been some combination of word of mouth and really just being on top of all of my communication channels. There's a gazillion of them. There's emails, there is WhatsApp, there is Slack, and then there are events. And you just have to distill all of that information that's coming from all channels and kind of archive it for some later reference.
I thought I had a lot of emails at work
Yeah.
before coming to Stanford, and I thought I was really good at organizing and staying on track of things, but my goodness, the amount that happens on this campus, it truly is difficult to, it's like a job in of itself to be on top of that.
Yeah, and the FOMO is so real of there's so many things going
Very
on
real.
and you just feel like, how do I be a part of everything? But I mean, hopefully your spreadsheet helps you focus on a few things, right? So Parul, if we now mix it up, you're obviously here with your family. In line with my preparation today, I was reading this article about you on Medium, and you talked about how your husband Pratik is a big supporter of you, and that's not traditional in an Indian home, right?
Yeah.
And you have your son here as well, and you're a full-time mom. You're trying to change the world with your work in sustainability. I mean, just talk us through your, family life here and, being particularly from the Bay Area and just making a slight move towards Stanford. But I still imagine that it was still a big move for your family, right?
Yeah, it was. And Jatin, as you referenced, I'm really fortunate. The story is that when I was in college, Pratik and I were classmates in undergrad. And my friends jokingly gave me a poster that said 90% of your happiness depends on who you marry. And I think I got that decision right.
Yeah.
We've been married for 19 years.
Wow.
It's crazy.
Yes.
So he's an incredibly supportive force, but he's also very ambitious in his career. And he's also a former entrepreneur who's now an investor. He's launching his new fund. So his work life is very busy. In fact, he's traveling for 2 weeks right now. So I was solo parenting through finals week. It was a little crazy. But we have a mutual understanding where we support each other in our careers. So the decision to move on campus was definitely not obvious because it meant, uprooting. We had a very comfortable life. We had our space, we had a community. My son really liked his friends in school, and both of them had to be uprooted from all of that, even though it was a small move. My son had a little bit of a hard time adjusting in school socially because he's at the beginning of his teenage and it's an awkward age to form new relationships. But we had a lot of conversations about whether this was the right decision. And while it felt like an effort, before coming, we were like, okay, we are ready for this. We're going to give it a try. And it took some effort, but we are very, very happy that we did it. And I think it's been great for everyone. Pratik now, for his work, he's in the innovation or startup ecosystem.
Right.
Stanford is a blessing. Stanford and Palo Alto, this is where all the entrepreneurs and VCs are hanging out. So this is great for him. And similarly, Palo Alto School District is a phenomenal, it's one of the best in California. So while it's been a change, it's been a positive change academically for my son. So we're happy we did it.
Yeah, I mean, I have the benefit of knowing Pratik and Abir, Parul's son, and I remember having coffee with Pratik, and he was just saying things just move faster when he's here in Palo Alto. What would take him a few weeks in Foster City takes him a few minutes in Palo Alto, because you can actually just meet somebody, have a coffee, and move things forward. And similarly with your son, I remember the first few events, he would be like sitting on the outside, and now I like see him there. He's like, he's got his group of friends. So it's amazing. Like that's 6-7 months, right? And his whole life has changed, right? And I guess, if you look at being a mom, you mentioned you were, being a full-time parent in finals week. I mean, what's that been like, and how do you balance actually all this time that you have to give to the curriculum versus actually being there for a beer and, getting through this difficult period?
Yeah. So there's, I think finals week is probably not a good place to talk about that. I think I've done really poorly on both fronts, not been there for a beer and not done enough on my assignments. So maybe that's a bad example to consider. But throughout the year, there's been kind of more intention. And I remember in one of the exercises that in our orientation week we did, where we set out our goals, one of my goals was to have at least 5 meals with my family through a week. And I've tried to be true to that. I mean, there are always networking events happening all the time, and it's easy to not be home for dinner and things like that. And there's some history to it, I started my company when Abir was 2. And I was gone for a lot of the time that he was growing up. Yeah. I was traveling a lot, and I would be gone for months. And even when I was at home, I was not mentally present because there were calls, there was problems. So one can always find reasons to be occupied in work, but it never ends. And before I know it, he'll be off to college. So this is my last chance.
I mean, that's a special part of this experience, right? Because most people live in. They've progressed in our cohort, right? They have bigger homes, and now you actually bring your whole family into a small place with a bigger community around you, and you actually, I think, in some ways, forced to be in each other's space a little bit more, right, and get to know each other, right? And I think that's a blessing. I know there's another one of our classmates, Abraham, and he's been just talking about, what an amazing experience has been being there for his family, because also you may have a little bit more free time here than you have in your corporate career, right? So. Yeah. It's a really gift. It's a great gift from a time perspective.
That was the one thing I was very surprised about when moving here is that like 98% of our cohort lives on campus.
Yeah.
Even the people who were in the Bay Area previously, I was very surprised. But I do think that it adds to the sense of community building that that we get just being on campus. You're like 5 minutes away. I'm sure you were neighbors with a bunch of MSX people. So I think it makes a big difference to the experience.
100%.
I mean, it's the simple things of just reducing that distance to doing things. Like your barrier drops from having to drive 15 minutes to taking a 2-minute walk to do something. So we've got a classmate's birthday this afternoon. We're having a wine birthday. It's actually Koki's birthday today, or yesterday in fact, so he's having something over. We're just talking about how we maximize the time in the last quarter, right? We don't have that much time, but when you have low barriers to doing things, you actually spend some time with people and really experience life at Stanford properly, right?
Yeah.
So I think we're grateful and also a little bit somber that this is coming to an end, right? How does it feel?
Still have 3 more months.
Yeah, still 3 more months, right?
Don't rush us.
Yeah, definitely some of that is coming in. And I see even between the two of you, there's a difference in how we are feeling. But yeah, I've felt similarly to you, Jatin, that feeling of nostalgia is starting to settle in. And I intentionally kept my spring quarter light because I wanted to be able to enjoy the people, the space, and everything Stanford has to offer. So kind of jammed it all into the winter quarter. Got a little crazy with that. But
yeah, I'm looking forward to of teaming up with Parul on the next quarter on a finance class, so going back to my roots, and I'm really looking forward to that because I think Parul and I haven't had a chance to work on a teamwork together, group work together, so that's going to be fun. So I guess, Parul, if we look forward to the next quarter and spring break, I mean, what does your next 3 months look like here at Stanford?
Yeah. So spring break won't be much of a break, but it is going to be very exciting because I'm going to join the India Climate GST with a group of MBAs. So this is unfortunately something that's not a part of our MSX program, but it is an incredible learning opportunity. So there's a delegation of 30 MBA students and a faculty member that's going to study the state of the climate landscape in India.
Wow.
And we are meeting a great group of organizations actually across the government, business, startups, philanthropy. We are meeting the Ministry of Power, the biggest family-run conglomerate that has a big footprint in energy. We are meeting startups and conservation projects. So I'm really looking forward to that. It's a pretty packed schedule, so I might come back like jet lagged and dead at the end of it. But I'm really excited about it. And then spring quarter, as I referenced earlier, I'm just kept it light, 11 units. However, the course that we're going to partner on, I've heard that it's not an easy walk, so we'll see how that goes. But really looking forward to just wrapping up my courses. On the career side, I'm in the middle of a few processes, so I hope to conclude them earlier in spring. So then can be completely stress-free and enjoy disorientation week and commencement and things like that. So.
And what do you have planned from a fun perspective? Like, what are you looking forward to in terms of skiing and holidays? anything that's like a bright little ray of sunshine outside of the career and climate stuff in the next few weeks?
So in the next few weeks, again, this trip is the big thing, and I'll get to see my parents and a lot of friends in India, so which is also the fun side. We will celebrate Holi in India with this group, which is something one of my friends is hosting. So all of that will be fun. I haven't really thought as far as living by the day. We'll take it a day at a time.
I agree with you. I've thought up until the end of the spring break, and then after that, I don't know.
This is so much to be done, right? It's an incredible place. Yeah. So Parul, if you had to provide us, I guess, we have a bunch of incoming students listening to this, prospective MSX applicants. What would be the 1-2 pieces of advice you would have from your time at Stanford and giving to them to say, make the most of this experience?
Yeah. So this might sound cliched, but really think very deeply about what you want to get out of this experience, because Stanford has tremendous opportunity and a lot to offer. You will not be able to make or take in all of it. You'll really have to pick and choose. So think about your goals. What do you need to achieve those goals? It can be related to career. It can be friends and community. It can be broad exposure, which is the case for some of our employer-sponsored candidates. So you just think about what is it that matters to you and choose experiences that are aligned with that. Say no to everything else. Do not succumb to FOMO, because what you don't want to leave with is regret that you didn't get what you came in for.
Sure.
I think that's the best piece of advice I've heard, and I wish I had heard it when I found out that I got in, because I also only had like 2-3 months, and I took a month off of work to quote unquote relax. But I wish I had used that time to think more deeply about like what I wanted to get out of here, because once you come here, it's like 50,000 things thrown at you. Yeah. And it's very easy to get lost and spend a whole year here and be like, what did I achieve? What did I learn? Like, did I achieve the goals that I wanted? So I think that's wonderful advice.
Thank you.
Parul, from your conversation, I think I take away a few things. I think, we joked about the spreadsheet, but I think you're super deliberate about this point, about making sure that you have a framework for deciding what matters to you and how you spend your time. I mean, you can't manufacture more time. That's the one thing we don't have. And, a year is a short period of time in our lives. And like we're reminiscing about it disappearing, I think it's a great example of how to just plan meticulously and make sure you do the right things. Sasha, what do you take away from Parul?
Yeah, I think just being really intentional and forgetting the FOMO, because you are just not going to be able to do everything. You're going to have to pick and choose between spending time with your family, between classes, between attending events, between attending social things, going on trips. There's just so much going on. And you have to be intentional about what you choose to do. So I really resonate with that.
Well said.
Awesome. So I think this is the last podcast for this quarter. We have 4 done. We have a few planned, and we hope to have a few former students on our podcast next quarter. And it's a great time to take this as a memento of the last day of the winter quarter of 2024. Right, it'll always go down as a great time to look back with this period with tremendous fondness, because like I said, I think this was the main dish if Stanford was a meal. So thank you all for listening and supporting us, and please spread the word if you have listened to this podcast, and drop us an email or a message if you have any specific feedback for us. And we're looking forward to seeing everybody in probably in April, 3 weeks' time. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Cheers.